For my birthday, I made myself a gathered maxi dress, and today I'm going to show you how I did it. For this dress, I used the following items. To sew this dress, you're also going to need the following tools. I started off by joining two pieces together for the bottom of my dress. I measured from the top of my fabric the length I wanted the dress to be from waist to hem, which was 47 inches, and I drew a line as a guide for where I would cut. So I'm gonna join this short piece that's about 68 inches to this other piece that is 128 inches wide. And I'm doing it like this because I want this dress to have lots of body. I want it to be very fluffy. So I'm gonna put this piece down first, the wrong side facing up, and I'm gonna put this other piece on top of it with the wrong side facing down. So these two fabrics are now wrong sides together. I'm gonna put pins all along the end. This is a 1/4 inch allowance. Then I stitched two parallel lines at the top of the skirt. I used stitch length 5, and this is so I can add gathers to this garment. And I'm gonna separate the top thread from the bottom thread. The gathered area should be equal to your waist circumference plus 1.5 inches. So this area is where the zipper is gonna go, and also the seam at the back. I did this for both sides, and then I'm gonna be trying this top for my dress. So this one has 4 different designs, and I'm doing this design, except I won't be doing this bottom piece. I'm just replicating the top to go with the skirt. So these are the 4 pieces that I'm gonna be using. When you buy this pattern, you'll be told where to trace darts, and you'll also be told how many pieces to cut for each pattern piece. So I have to turn this fabric over, and I'm gonna put the tracing paper down on it like this. This is where I traced the darts from the sewing pattern onto the fabric using my tracing wheel and tracing paper. Here, I'm stitching darts in all the places where I traced. So that was the bust dart, and this is the side seam dart. I ironed my bust dart towards the center front of this top, and I ironed my side seam dart downwards. Then I took the bottom threads at the peak of each dart and I tied knots in them. This was done for all 4 of my front pieces. Next, I finished the edge of the front flounce by folding inwards by 1/2 inch and stitching. Then I finished the hem of the flounce. This is a curved hem, and I know this can be tricky to sew, so if you want to see a video on how to do that, then comment down below and I'll work on that for you. Here I'm running 2 parallel lines of stitches at the top of my flounce so that I can gather it. Once I was done gathering the flounce, I placed it on the right front of the top of my dress, and I stitched from the armhole, around the strap, and all the way down the end of the flounce. I had to adjust my gathers as I went along, and I backstitched at the beginning and the end. I pinned the front and back together at the sides for both the interior and exterior of this top. For the interior pieces, which I will also refer to as the lining pieces, I stitched from top to bottom with a 1/2 inch allowance. However, for the exterior pieces, I stopped stitching 3 inches from the bottom. The next thing I did was to stitch the 2 shoulder straps right sides together from top to bottom. I used this pole to turn them out and I pressed them flat using my iron. I also pressed the side seams open. I used my sewing pattern as a guide to place the straps on the exterior of the top, and I stitched them into place. With that being done, I started to join the interior and exterior parts of the top together. I'm stitching the 2 right pieces together. I first stitched the armhole, and now I'm stitching the neckline where the flounce is, and I'm stitching with a 1/2 inch seam allowance, back stitching at the beginning and the end. Next, I clipped into the curve of the armhole. This is to make sure that there will be no tension when the top is turned out like this. I did the same thing for the left side of the top, and now I'm connecting them at the sides where they overlap. Thankfully, this pattern does come with instructions that you can read, so if you don't fully understand what I'm saying here in this video, then don't worry, all hope is not lost. I went ahead and ironed my armhole lines flat, and I did the same thing for the neckline where the flounce is. Then I went ahead and connected the straps to the peaks where I left the spaces, and I stitched with a 1/2 inch allowance. Then I stitched the bottom of the top. I did this to hold it in place so that I can finally add the top of my dress to the bottom of my dress. I did that by placing the top and bottom right sides together. I aligned the sides, pinned them into place, and I also pinned in between that space. I stitched the bottom and top of the dress together using a 1/2 inch allowance. The next thing I did was to insert an invisible zipper into the back of my dress. If you want to see a video on how to insert an invisible zipper, then leave a comment down below and I can do a video that's much more in depth. This zipper was much longer than I needed it to be, so I stopped about 5 inches before the end of the zipper, and I placed a pin where I stopped, so that way I would know how to align it with the other side of the dress. I made sure that when I aligned this top piece here, it was perfectly in line with the other top piece, and the same thing goes for the seam that connected the skirt to the top. Once all of that was in place, I could stitch the zipper on the other side, back stitching at the beginning and the end, and I actually had to remove the zipper slide in order to get to the other end. And when I say remove, I mean I had to open it. I changed my presser foot back to regular, and I tacked the bottom of the zipper so that my zipper slide would not go all the way down. And then I stitched the back seam right sides together, starting below the zipper all the way to the hem. And speaking of hem, I folded my hem up by 1/4 inch and then by 1 inch, and I stitched along the top edge all the way around. I pressed the hem of my dress flat so that it would look nice and neat. This is how my dress turned out, and I was super happy. If you like this circle bag, then go to QUAINTbags.com to get yours. If you watched all the way to the end and you're thinking about making this dress, then leave some dress emojis in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.